Aloha and welcome to day 8 of the DanOCan Hawai'i 5-0 Adventure Series. We're starting our day off here outside the old Holualoa Post Office that operated from 37 up until 61. Currently a ukulele shop and gallery. But we were here finding a geocache, of course, hidden in one of the old post office boxes. And we're just gonna get going with today. We've had our breakfast already at 808 Grinds with a Z or a Z if you're in America. Probably the best value for breakfast we've seen since we've been on the island. Super nice guys working there too, very friendly. Let's see what else we find today. So across the road from the old post office is this monument of some sort here, dated 1925. We have no context for it whatsoever, so maybe one of our viewers can tell us what it says or something about it. Somebody must know. And like everywhere we've been on the island so far, it seems like fantastic ocean view down there. This really nice green church here, the Living Hope Church. Again, no history on it or anything, but beautiful building in a great setting. So as of the time of this recording, today is my 50th birthday. So that makes me a piece of living history, and what better way to mark the occasion than to come to the Kona Historical Society Living History Farm. So basically this is a coffee farm, and we're gonna check it out and learn a bit about how coffee growing was done through the 20th century here. So these are the coffee plants, these low growing trees here down in front, and I can't see very well in the bright sunlight, but if you look there, there's the coffee cherries, I guess they're called at this stage. Green means they're not quite ripe, and red means they're ripened. So this particular farm was home to the Uchida family from sometime in the 19-teens right up until 1994. 3 generations of the family lived here and worked in the coffee industry. The farmhouse that we're going to visit is from 1925 and served as the family home right up until 1994.
Not the summertime. You can guess, right? Summertime how much hot.
Yeah.
No water system. So this letter had to be here. Okay, screen here. Need an air go through.
Mm-hmm.
And see the bottom, or use the ink there.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They put the oil. You know why, right? And
Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
something with
you know,
insects.
left over here didn't do anything, and it's all over. So
Oh.
that's why I put the oil, and it's not gonna be able to climb.
Yeah, into their food. Yeah.
Right.
that makes sense.
So same reason table has so you can put the oil
Huh.
to boil it and say
It's very
cockroach.
smart.
So they were explaining to us that many of these coffee trees are all 80 to 100 years old, but they are always so short because they're constantly being trimmed down so that they stay at a height where people can just walk along and pick the coffee beans. So that's why you'll see the tops of them, the branches are quite thin, But when you get down and look at the base and at the bottom of the trunk, much thicker, much older, because that part of the tree is allowed to continue to grow while the rest is always being trimmed down. So another little bit about the history of the land. The family never actually owned the property. They were just they just leased it, basically. And so when the family, the fourth generation, decided they didn't want to be in the coffee business anymore, the owner of the land actually put the land up for sale, and the intent was it was going to be sold and bulldozed to build a subdivision. But the Kona Historical Society reached out to him, and the landowner happened to be a member of the board of directors of the society, and they were able to convince him that even though it meant less money, the fact that this farm was so complete and intact from the 1920s, basically that there was a lot more value here as a living history farm than it would be as a subdivision. And they were able to convince him to take less money for the land and not develop it. And that's why the living history farm is still here for us to experience today. So the Uchitas weren't the only family that lived on this land. I'm just gonna check ye old brochure here. So they actually subleased the land in the 1930s to the Shirai family, and the Shirai family lived here through the 1930s. Mr. Shirai was a farmer, or sorry, he was a fisher, and the family helped out on the farm here, and the remains of their house are up here somewhere. There's not apparently much left, as it was converted into a bomb shelter in the 1940s with the outbreak of World War II. So you can see a bit of what's left here. There's what appears to be some stairs and a foundation here. This piece of tin and more space up there in the off access or off limits territory. But this was another family home back in the 30s. Having to carefully pick our way through, so many macadamia nuts have fallen. The macadamia nut trees were planted a bit later in the history of the farm as another way of diversifying and supplementing the income. Of course, coffee prices fluctuate up and down, and so having other methods of supporting the family was important. A lot of the women and the girls in the family would sew items, and I showed you that room there a bit back in the farmhouse. They would sew things to sell to help supplement the income of the family. You had to do what you had to do to survive.
Can help. Yeah. Coffee farming is very labor intensive. You need a lot of people. Into this funnel right here.
Okay.
Into this funnel, and there's this big tower here. In this tower, there's these cups that will pick up the coffee, and it will pick it up by this 5 horsepower John Deere motor. Okay.
Okay.
There's belts here on wheels, and so that turning of it now is done by this machine. Yeah, here. So that little piece of machinery now is in the tower up there. Okay.
So it's much easier.
Yeah.
So the farmer job's easier, but not the donkey.
The donkey's okay. Yeah. Shaker that looks just like this, but it's long. Okay. He scoops beans and he throws it in there, and that shaker is shaking by this motor to shake off all the water.
Okay.
And the seeds will end up on the platform in the corner here. Okay? And farmer will then go up on the platform with a shovel and he spreads all the seeds on the platform. Okay? Initially, when the farmers were pulping coffee that way, they would spread the seeds on little pieces of burlap on the ground wherever they could find a space. So very, very labor intensive, right? They all go to the farm, it starts raining, somebody has to run home and fold it all up, but then they invented this. Okay? Now this is on wheels. On wheels like this, okay, on the sides.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and you can open and close it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, neat.
In the morning, when Dad is going to open this, the children in the house will go, "Wait, Dad, wait a minute." And they all run up and they want to ride it. So that's this platform, 4 or 5 days, depending on the sun. Okay? The farmer usually just picks it up and he can tell whether it's dried or what. He'll play with it and take the skin off and say, okay, I think it's dried. Okay, then it is bagged in burlap bags, and at this point you can keep your coffee. Okay, you can keep it and wait until the price goes up, or if you don't need the cash, you can just keep it.
So of course, with the metal roof, that allowed them to use a catchment system for water. You can see there's a trough running there that comes across into the storage tanks. Had a bathhouse here.
The bathhouse, they would heat the water.
Right, yeah, so the bathhouse had heated water, hence why there's boxes of kindling here and more branches here for the fires. As the docent was saying, coffee farming is all very self-sustaining. The branches that get trimmed off the trees eventually become firewood. The outer part of the coffee cherry gets put back into the fields as fertilizer. There's a good look at one of the large catchment tanks where they would catch the rainwater. And then there's a second catchment tank over here as well. So you had to make sure you captured your water and don't let anything go to waste. So we did learn a couple other things along the way. Back in the day, they did not prune the trees down to the levels that they do today. And so they would the pickers would have to carry the ladders around and try and use it on this uneven ground to get to the coffee beans up at the higher levels. So a couple last things to just wrap up here at the Kona Coffee Living History Farm. I showed the donkeys. I didn't really talk about the donkeys, but they were primarily used for carrying the sacks of coffee. A coffee sack you're looking at, like they said, 100 pounds typically. A farmer carrying that over uneven ground, slipping on macadamia and that sort of thing, versus the having a donkey which can carry 4 bags from the field to the mill. Much easier, much more efficient, and much safer. So I didn't cover that while we were there. Just got to say that was a fantastic little stop. The people there are very passionate, very knowledgeable, and we learned an awful lot, and that was a fantastic stop for us.
This place was great. The docents, you can tell, truly enjoy talking to people and are very passionate about the farm. So thankful that the land was saved and is available for us to visit these days. And I don't think I'm going to think about coffee the same way ever again. I kind of knew that it came from a fruit, basically, and that it turns brown because it's roasted, but didn't really know all the ins and outs, so it was super informative.
So for our next stop, we owe a debt of gratitude to the people at the Kona Historic Coffee Farm for telling us about the painted church. Let's go check it out. So checking out Kona Brewing Company.
Yay! Hi, Jen.
Link. Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it is really good.
Ooh, that was good. Making our way back through the heart of Kona, heading to Fish Hopper Restaurant for birthday dinner and the wrap up our day. You're like, I thought you were gonna say something like, let you know, I don't know, we have allergies or we're cheap or I'm not sure what. I don't know. Like, no one needs to know.
Yes.
Uh-huh. It has an actual face on the pineapple drink. The only smile bigger is yours.
I'm so excited about this.
And that is going to be a wrap on day 8 and my 50th birthday. And I gotta say, we've had such a great time here. We just were talking over dinner about how everyone has been so good and so pleasant to be around, whether it's the serving staff or the other people we've talked to. What a great time, and we're not done yet. We've still got 3 more days to go.